So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Jesse Brisendine, and today's topic is going to be on healing from loss, specifically how to push through the pain of a loss and help you ultimately go forward and not just heal, but my intention is to really help you go on to live a happy and fulfilling life, one that the person you've lost would be proud of, that to see you living such a happy and fulfilling life. Really quick, who's this for tonight? Who's this for? Well, this particular talk tonight is for anybody who has lost somebody they care about, whether that's been a heartbreak or a death of a friend, a death in the family, a death of a significant other. This is for anybody who does currently know someone who's lost someone. So if you have a friend, a family member who's going through a tough time and you want to help them, you're in the right place for this, because I'm going to give you some really powerful tools and resources that's going to enable you to do exactly that. Again, my intention for this is to really teach to you tonight and help those of you who have recently suffered a loss or currently feel your life's been restricted by a loss, and help you to begin to heal and go forward so you can live a happy and fulfilling life. This isn't for somebody who this is not for. You know, a topic like this is pretty... I think it's almost for everybody, because inevitably one part of life that's going to be universal for all of us is we're all going to encounter loss in some form. Right? We're all going to encounter loss at some form. I think those of us who really live fully are going to likely encounter loss even more so. Right? Because living fully encompasses loving deeper. It encompasses being closer and connecting more. And I think that in that fullness, we're also going to experience loss more. So this isn't for you if you're someone who has lost someone, but you're at that place right now where you're really committed to keeping the pain around. And we'll touch on that a little bit more in this evening, but if you're someone who's committed to keeping the pain around, and you're here looking for an excuse or a justification for that, this isn't the place for you, because this focus is really on healing and helping you go from wherever you are now to wherever you want to be. Again, if you're someone who hasn't necessarily lost someone per se, but you're here because you want to learn, you want to educate yourself, you want to empower yourself so you can help those around you, you're in the right place. If you've never met me before, hi, my name's Jesse Brisendine, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of being your host this evening. I am a life coach, speaker, author, and I'm blessed to be able to work with people from all over the world. To date, I think last time I counted, I've been able to interact and work with over 4,000 people in different programs and services I offer from all over the world. And there's likely people on this right now attending from a couple different countries, different time zones, different states. And I really love what I do. What got me to teaching a course on loss is a lot of times with life coaching, the term life coaching, we think of it as really about forward progressing, right? If you imagine a coach in the game and a coach with a sports team, what is their goal? Their goal is to take a group of people and bring them together and extrapolate the absolute best out of them to help them accomplish whatever it is they want to accomplish. You know, typically it's to win a World Series or a Super Bowl or some sort of championship. Well, with life coaching, it's the same idea, where whether it's in your relationship, your physical health, your financial, your business, your whatever that is, the goal is to take you as you are and extrapolate the absolute best out of you to help you get from wherever you are to wherever it is you want to be. So how does a life coach get to teaching a course about loss? It doesn't sound all happy and joyful and whatnot. Well, here's how. I have been no stranger to loss. My first significant loss came in 2009, where I happened to pound one day. One of my closest friends at the time sent me a text message, and I'll never forget this. It's still one of my most vivid memories to this day. I was sitting in the library, which was where I used to go to work in the afternoons, and I just liked the solitude that the library brought. It really helped me concentrate. And I get a text message from this friend, and he said, "I love you all." my heart immediately sank because I knew that he had been going through a rather tough time. And I just got that feeling. And, have you ever gotten a feeling that something's wrong, something's happened? Have you ever got that feeling that, whatever is about to happen, it's not good? And I got that feeling. I mean, it literally was such a visceral feeling that I could feel it permeate every single part of my body. And I immediately wrote him back and asked if he was okay, and I love you too, and he didn't respond. And I remember having this moment where I closed my computer because I was getting ready to go look for him, but then I stopped and I started to open it back up because I thought, and the dialogue was this: it was, Jesse, are you really ready for this? Are you really ready for this? Because I knew deep down in my heart, I already knew what was about to happen. I can't explain to you how I knew that, but I knew. And I started to have those voices that came up. And maybe some of you have had a voice that's happened at some point in your life that's tried to talk you out of something. And this particular voice for me was saying, don't go. What if you're wrong? What if you create this big stir about something that's not even there? Maybe you're overreacting. All those voices of doubt, they were screaming in my head, but I knew, I had that feeling in my gut that I had to do something because I knew what was going to happen. From that, I took my computer, I packed it up, I called my friend who came and picked me up at the library, and we went looking for my friend Gabe. We looked at the place that I had seen him at last, and finally I was able to get a hold of one of his very best friends who had gotten the same text message I had, and he said, man, you got to get to him. It's not good. I got that message too. So at that point, my heart starts just racing, right? Because now I have another person that's kind of on the same wavelength as me, and I'm able to get a hold of Gabe's then girlfriend at the time, who told me where he was at. And I remember getting there, and there was dogs barking, and I asked his uncle if we could go in the house, and and I was telling him, like, I'm really worried if there's something going on. And his uncle went into the house, and he went up the stairs, and I remember his uncle going to the bathroom that I was standing at the bottom of the stairs looking up, and there was a bathroom right at the top left of the stairs. And as he was opening that door, I already had my hand out on my phone with my finger over the 9. I had a BlackBerry at the time where they still had the touchpad. This was before you had the, what the hell do we call it now? There were still the physical keys, right? We didn't have all the touch screen. And I had my hand over the 9 because I already knew. And I'll never forget him opening the door and saying, oh, there you are, there's people. And then I hear him saying, what the... And then he sticks his head out the door and yells, call 911. My friend goes to reach for his phone. I tell him I got it because I already have it out and I'm already calling. And him and I go running up the stairs, and we find Gabe, one of my dearest and most closest friends in the world, gasping for air as a result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. And I will spare you all the details of what I experienced in there at that time. It was something that I would never wish it on my worst enemy, and I don't really think I have enemies. But to say it was bad, to say that it was violent, to say that it was bloody is an understatement. And I remember it took 5 minutes and 55 seconds from the time I called 911 for the paramedics to get there. I remember seeing that number on my phone when I finally hung up, and they came upstairs. And I remember this whole time, there was almost like, it was like my mind went into this mode where it split off into these distinct levels of consciousness, where there was a part of me focusing on trying to communicate with my friend and figure out what we need to do to try to save his life. There was a part of me who was really focused in on listening to the 911 operator and her steady and calm voice during our time of crisis. And there was a part of me that was sitting there crying inside going, I don't want my friend to die, I don't want to lose him. And then there was this other part of me going, why? Why is this happening? What is this? Gabe's passing was the first significant loss, physical loss I'd had. Prior to that, I'd gone through a relationship ending, which was my first broken heart. And if any of you have read my book, Ouch, My Heart Is Broken, that was the book that relationship was where that book came from. And if we have a little bit of time later, I'll touch on that. But actually, in terms of a physical death, that was my first, significant death I had experienced. And the fallout of it was something else, because at the time I'd always been this, this kind of pillar of strength and the leader in my group, and suddenly I didn't have the answers. I didn't know where to turn to. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to relate. Any of you who have ever lost someone before, perhaps you felt that way before too. It seems like for many moments on end, time stands still, doesn't it? And you're there just going through this, staying while everybody else goes on their merry way. I can remember feeling like I was on a hairpin trigger right afterwards, that these little trivial things that people would get so fixated on, like where to park or how loud the TV is, would drive me absolute crazy, to the point where I felt like I would want to scream. Scream because I thought, how can you be so worked up or so upset about parking space or what volume the TV's at, when I've just literally seen my friend die in my arms? Can you relate to that at all? And for me, that was one of the hardest parts, because I felt like I in a sense, that here was the world going on and here's me over here. It was like life was continuing and I was in this alternate reality, where in that reality I couldn't relate to anybody. And I struggled with it. I struggled with it for a long time, but in that struggle I also became fascinated by the human experience and the human condition, because I realized that there was a part about humanity that I hadn't learned up to that point, and Gabe was teaching me. You see, I had made it my mission for the last however many years of my adult life to study people and our emotions and our thought patterns and why we do what we do. I've been so fascinated by people because I so desperately wanted to be able to help people in any way I could. Ever since I was a little kid, all I've ever wanted to do is help people. And I'd been successful at that to a point, but I realized what I couldn't do, and what Gabe was teaching me, is I couldn't relate. I couldn't relate to that profound pain, that unmistakable pain that only comes with loss. Because until that, all I had was, theory and concepts and ideas in my head. But now I had experience. And from Gabe, I really started to dive in and try to understand, what is it about loss? Why do we go through these processes? What are the stages of grief? How is it that somebody's able to move on and overcome and go on to live an amazing life, and others stay stuck in loss, and the death of someone may haunt them for months, maybe even years? How is it that some can go on and live and have happy and fulfilling and successful relationships, careers, health, and others will forever struggle with the nightmare that was that loss? How is it that some can use their loss and have it become this fuel for their fire of life? And how is it that others can take a loss and it becomes the weight that weighs them down and keeps them from ever going forward? I so desperately wanted to understand that, because I wanted to be able to help people that were going through what I was going through. My mission was if I could understand what my pain and the purpose of my pain was, I wanted to be able to educate and empower others so they never had to go through the depths of pain that I did, or that they could maybe go into and experience some of that pain, whatever their path or their purpose or their road was they were traveling on, but they could extrapolate some of what I had to offer so that they could help themselves advance further along and not suffer as long as I felt like I was suffering. And that was one of my real inspirations about this talk tonight, and the Healing for Loss course I've created, is I see so much suffering out there. I see so much suffering out there that's so unnecessary. It's like there's not just the pain of loss is enough, but it's almost like the desolation that comes afterwards, the pain that we bear for so long post loss, and it causes so much unnecessary suffering. So many beautiful, wonderful, amazing people spend so much of their life in the state of suffering because of the pain that comes from this loss. Perhaps you have done that too. I was finally getting to the place where I was starting to heal from Gabe and having a renewed outlook on life. And I was on the phone with my dad, talking to my dad about a recent experience I'd had and how it just opened my mind and how happy I was, and I felt like I was back to being myself for the first time, and since Gabe had died. And my dad was sharing with me how he was excited about his life. He had been going through colon cancer treatment for the last 2 years and been sick with chemo and surgery and all that. And he had recently, just a couple weeks prior, spoken with his physician. And his physician extended his hand out and said, "Congratulations, Mike, you're officially cancer-free." And my dad was excited to share with me his new lease on life. You know, the things he had always wanted to do, his priorities that he had always wanted to make a priority, but he hadn't done that yet. And my dad and I had this amazing conversation, and I remember hanging up the phone thinking, my gosh, you know, life's really turning around. I'm moving beyond what happened with Gabe. I have this new lease and outlook on life. My dad's excited for his life. He's not sick anymore. And then the next morning at 9 a.m., my mom called me to tell me my dad was dead. And the reason why he died, you know, we never got the autopsy done. We didn't. My family wasn't really anybody. The autopsies can be very pricey, and it was something I think the insurance didn't cover it, and the money that I had at the time went towards the funeral expenses and whatnot. I hadn't seen my dad for about 2 years. And the reason I hadn't seen my dad for about 2 years was because instead of going home for that previous Christmas, I took myself on a trip. I took myself on a trip to try to recover from my loss of Gabe, and then also the girl I'd been dating at the time. It destroyed our relationship. We came apart. So many of my friendships came apart. So I took it as my sabbatical to try to heal. And I thought, oh, you know, my parents are going to be here forever. I'll see them soon. So when I finally saw my dad, it was in the mortuary with him and his, you know, laying there and, you know, touching his cold skin. And in that loss, I had this, you know, concept of time, and I also had this voice of almost victimhood, right? The why me? How can this be happening to me? Maybe some of you have had a loss or multiple losses might have felt that before. But I remember that voice literally screaming out from my dad is, why me? Why am I going through this? Why him? He just got this new lease on life. Maybe you've lost somebody before and you thought that. You know, why them? Why them? They just got this new lease on life. They just got this new opportunity. Why them? I share this story with you, these stories with you because, not to commiserate, but I want to impress upon you that I've been there. I've been in a place likely where you are right now, or where somebody you love and care about is right now. And I want you to know that I come here to you, not just on the experience of helping over 4,000 people from around the world with accomplishing whatever it is they seek to accomplish in life, but I'm here because I've lived, I've lost, I've suffered, I've struggled, and I've learned some really key and powerful and distinctive things from that. These things are things that I want to share with you right now that were so powerful and helpful that when I lost my very best friend in the world in a car crash a couple years ago, the way I went through that loss was much different than I'd gone through the previous two. Because that loss had taught me some things, because I had learned so much from the first ones, and I had committed so much to myself of living a different way and applying some of these tools and strategies I'm going to teach with you, that when I went through that loss of my best friend, the mourning process was different. It was different because I still mourn the loss of somebody who I loved and cared about. The person I was probably closest to, closer to anybody else in this world. But what was different about that is I hadn't lost myself. I hadn't lost myself. Maybe you can relate, because I think one of the things that so many people struggle with is when they lose someone. They feel like not only did they lose a person, they feel like they lost themselves. And so the mourning process is not just the loss of the person, but it goes into about the loss of yourself. Can you relate to that? And that leads into what the first kind of big idea I want to talk to you about today is the danger of despair. And part of the reason why I'm sharing this time with you right now. There is a danger that comes in despair. Right? Despair being that state where sometimes you'll call it despair, sometimes we call it depression. And sometimes those two terms are interchangeable, and sometimes they're used individually, depending on what books you read, what videos you watch. And the danger of despair is this, is loss. Inevitably, loss is going to redefine your life in some way, shape, or form. Because life is never going to be the same. You had this person that was so significant, such a significant and important part of your life, and now they're not there. The danger of despair is what happens is you allow the loss to redefine it for you, as opposed to you redefining it. See, and there's a big distinction there. The danger of despair is despair redefines the loss for us. And that's where it sets off a host of negative implications and ramifications that can cost us months, years, maybe even the rest of our overall quality of life. This is where you'll see people who are struggling and suffering unnecessarily years, decades after they've lost someone, because they've likely gotten so trapped in that despair trap and have allowed the loss to define their life going forward. It might sound something like this: I lost this person and now my life is this. One that you may have heard before in a relationship. And can a relationship be as painful, a loss of a relationship be as painful as a death? Absolutely. Right? Any of us who have ever had a broken heart and also lost somebody from death can attest to the fact that oftentimes the pain of losing a relationship may be even more painful than a death. Right? And we won't get too much in that here just because of timing. But in a relationship, you might hear somebody say something like this: that person left and they were the only one who loved me. And now what? And now I'll never be able to be loved like that again. That person loved me and now nobody will ever love me like they did. Now I'll be unlovable because the one person who loved me is gone. Perhaps you've heard that before, or you've heard somebody who said that before. And that's the real danger of despair, because when we start to get trapped into that dialogue and we start to believe that and it becomes a belief of ours, it will dictate the course of our life going forward. So much so that this has negative implications and ramifications not just on our life, but on the quality of lives of the people we surround ourselves with. If you have kids, if you think about your kids, your friends, your family, how many of them are affected in a not positive way by the loss you endured because you've been trapped in despair for too long? Right? Does it make your relationships harder? Does it make your way you relate to people harder? Do you find that people feel like they're always walking around on eggshells around you? Right? This is what despair does. You literally feel like the fabric that's holding life together is so fragile. It's like walking around on a flimsy little piece of paper that could tear at any moment. And so many of us will get trapped in despair because we allow despair to define our lives going forward. So I want to bring attention to the danger of despair. Now, what motivates the danger of despair? Well, it's often pain and the purpose in the pain. Now, what do I mean by the purpose in the pain? Before you say, Jesse, there's no purpose to pain. It hurts. Why the hell would I want it around? There is a purpose to it. And if you can just stick with me and humor me for a moment, and if you're relating to anything I've said thus far, I hope you trust in enough what I'm about to say and just, try it on for a little bit. Despair will often exist, and more specifically, despair will often be drug out or carried around much longer. It'll be that burden that we carry and we don't set down, and the reason that is because there's a purpose that we assign to our pain. Our pain has a purpose, and there's a payoff in that purpose. Now, what do you mean? How can there be a payoff in our purpose? How can that be? Right? How can there be a payoff in our pain? I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to struggle to get out of bed every morning. I don't want to hate the person who I see in the mirror. I don't want to constantly try to cover things up because my eyes look so puffy and bloodshot from crying. I don't want to feel like my heart's been ripped out of my chest and my body's not even my own. You're going to tell me there's a purpose in your pain? Yeah, absolutely I am. And here's what it is. So remember we talked about the danger of despair, right? Is despair defining your life, defining the quality of your life, defining the substance of your life going forward. And what happens is we need to have pain, we need to have purpose in our pain to help fuel that. It goes something like this. How many of you have ever been on Facebook before? How many of you have ever gone on Facebook and you know somebody on Facebook who will put a positive post up? Oh, it's a wonderful day today. And they get maybe, a 5 likes, 8 likes, 1 or 2 comments. But then they post something negative. Today's the worst day ever. I feel so sad. What happens there? 20 likes, 10 comments, right? They get exponentially more interaction. exponentially more interaction. Think about the news. Why does the news always put so much negative stuff on there? Right? Because it injects pain into us, and pain is very intoxicating and it's very addictive. And so what happens is that person learns unconsciously that they're going to get more of a sense of connection. They're going to get more of a closeness to people by putting on the posts like that they put on Facebook. And so our pain becomes our way we relate to people. It becomes our way we relate to people. Right? We go into a self-help group or something like that, and suddenly our identity becomes that. Right? How many of you have met somebody before and they literally say, hello, my name is, and I'm depressed? Right? Depression has become almost this cap that we can put on and wear around. Right? Now, we wouldn't go up to them and say, hello, my name is, and I'm happy, or hello, my name is, and I'm elated. Right? But we will go up and literally say, hello, my name is, I'm depressed. Because the pain gives us an identity. It gives us a new identity. It gives us something firm. And in a life where things feel so flimsy like this, we may be desperate and craving for something a little bit, I know this isn't the firmest, but a little bit more firm. And it's a little bit more stable. And so while it may not be ideal, this is much firmer than this. It's a much more solid ground to stand on. And at least in there, we know where we stand. So this is where the danger of despair links into the purpose of our pain. Because the purpose of our pain gives us a new identity. An identity that we can make sense of after the loss. Identity that maybe most people can't relate to, since we can't relate to most people. Right? They don't know, they can't possibly know what I'm going through. Have you ever said that before? But what we can relate to is the pain. The other part of it is for some of us, we start to pervert pain. And what I mean by that is we pervert pain to keep the memory of the person we've lost alive. We think that by keeping that pain present, we're going to keep them present as well. Because the last thing we want is, even if they physically died, we'll be damned if the memory of them dies. We'll be damned if our emotion around them dies. And so we'll use our pain to keep them alive inside of us. Can you relate to this? So that's what we talk about, our purpose of pain. So we've got the danger of despair and the purpose of pain. And these are things, again, I want to bring your attention to. The point of this and the purpose of this is to really help you start to understand some concepts and grasp some ideas and start thinking about your loss in a different way. Because when we understand the danger of despair and the purpose of our pain, what we can start to do is we can acknowledge that these things exist. And if we want to shift away from them, I want to share with you just kind of a concept of how you can shift your emotion instantly. You see, it's been said that our energy is going to flow where our attention goes. And inevitably, what we think about is what we bring about. Now, so many of us, when we're in this place of loss, we're so focused on despair, we're so focused on the pain of the loss, that what do? We inevitably focus on that, and what does that bring? More pain, right? More pain. It's like if I pinch my hand, is it going to stop hurting? No, it's going to probably hurt even more the harder I pinch it. But if we don't know how to shift out of this, inevitably we're going to get more of what we think about. And this becomes one of those pink elephant scenarios where if I tell you do not think of a pink elephant, inevitably you have to think about what not to think about to not think about it. Make sense? When we're experiencing pain post-loss, most of that pain comes because we're so focused on the loss. And again, more specifically, not just the person we've lost, but the part of ourselves we believe we've lost in the process of it. So if we want to shift our emotion instantly, and when I say instantly, I mean literally like that, we have that ability to do so. Now, does shifting your emotion mean necessarily that you're going to immediately be healed? This is not going to be one of those hallelujah moments, or where you see on TV sometimes the person comes up and they're in crutches and the person puts their hand on the forehead and says you're healed, and then they're miraculously healed. That's not what this is, but what this does do is it gives you a resource. It gives you a resource and an understanding that you can exist in life a different way. So here's how this works. Energy is going to flow where your attention goes. If you focus, just try to focus on my hand right now. Just try to focus on my hand and really notice the lines of my hand, the contours of my hand. Just put all your attention, all your focus on my hand. All your attention on your focus on my hand. And I really want you to pay attention to it. Notice some of the lines here. Maybe there's a wrinkle. Maybe you see the calluses. on my hand. Maybe if you look at if you can see my fingernails, maybe they look like well manicured hands to you, or they look like typical guy hands to you. You know, one that hasn't seen clippers for a while. Okay, and I want you to just keep focusing on my hand, and then close your eyes and try to focus on my hand and hold that image of my hand in your mind. And what you'll find is that now as you're holding that image of my hand in your mind, I want you to notice that as you're doing that, you're going to see that as you're holding that image in your mind, I want you to just notice how you're not feeling the feelings you were feeling before. Right? Just notice that. Focus on the image of my hand in your mind, and now notice that you're not feeling what you felt before. Did you experience that? Now, take it a step further. I want you to notice something. Do you feel the chair that's underneath you? Now you do, whether you're sitting, standing, when you're watching this, now you do, right? But a moment ago you didn't notice the chair at all. You were so focused on my hand, you didn't feel the chair underneath you, did you? Because again, our energy is going to flow where our attention goes. And when you're so focused on my hand, you can't focus on the chair because we have this finite amount of energy inside of us that's going to allow us to really focus in on something. And where we put our focus, we're going to have an emotional response appropriately. Now you're likely overly aware of your chairs right now because I'm talking about it, right? And you're thinking, oh my God, Jesse, where did this chair come from? I know it was there before. And maybe some of you are sitting a little bit uncomfortably and now your back's starting to hurt a little bit, or maybe your back just started to hurt because I called out attention to your back starting to hurt. Because our energy is going to flow where our attention goes. Now here's what's really cool about this. You notice your chair, I want you to go back and really focus on my hand. Again, focus on my hand. And again, go really deep with this. Try to notice the lines in my hand. Notice the calluses, and maybe look at the knuckles, my fingernails. Just notice my hand. And really, really focus in on that. Notice that as you pay more and more attention to my hand, you start to lessen your attention to your seat, to the chair. Energy is going to flow where attention goes. So many of us get trapped in despair. So many of us get trapped by the pain by purpose, because our focus is going there all the time, nearly all the time. What I hope to illustrate to you is that you have a power to change your emotions. You have a power to shift your emotional state. And you can do so by where you put your focus. You shift your focus to something else, and you shift your reality you experience. Right? You shift your focus to something else, and you're literally going to shift your physical reality you experience. So much so that your emotion changes, what you're physiologically feeling changes. And now that if you stop paying attention to your chair or your back, notice that you don't notice it anymore until I just prompted you with that. And all of a sudden you can notice it again. Right? Isn't that cool? And I think it's cool because it shows, again, the resources, the power we have. You see, you were not born to be in this almost destitute from your pain. Your purpose in life is not one to carry this weight around with you forever. Your purpose in life is not to be burdened with the loss that you've had. I would argue quite the opposite. The reason we lose is, one, a testament to how much we love, and two, there's a purpose in it, and that purpose is for us to decide on how we're going to use it to live our lives going forward. I'll give you a quick example before I get to our last point here. One of the ladies who's taken the Healing from Loss course, Kelly, she has taken and discovered a new purpose. She lost her mom actually to cancer, and what she's done with it is such a beautiful and remarkable story where she's now channeled into putting together a presentation and using it to help educate other people about some of the challenges of cancer. Right? She's taken her pain and given it a new purpose. She's taken her pain and giving it a new purpose, and we talk all about that in the Healing from Loss course. And so I say it again, is our purpose is not to be pain. Our purpose is not to allow loss to define us. Right? We're meant to define loss. And that's going to happen from what we choose to focus on. Okay, and the last big point I want to share with you here is really coming across to, so how do we do this? Right? How do we, it's easy to say, well, Jesse, it's easier said than done. It's easy to focus on your hand when you're sitting in front of me saying, look at my hand, look at my hand. But how do I do that when you're not here? Right? You don't have any idea how painful it is, how debilitating this pain is. How am I supposed to do that when you're not here? And I'm going to sum this up into one word. Why? More specifically, what's your why? You see, Every good purpose has a why behind it, right? A reason for doing this, a reason for existing, a reason for whatever it is. Those of you who are parents, you have a why behind being a parent. Those of you who are committed to being a good husband, a good wife, a good partner, a good friend, a good family member, whatever it is, there's a why behind it. Most of us never define our why. Right? Remember what I opened this up and was sharing you about is, why am I here? I'm here because I want to help. I'm here because I want to help people in suffering. I want to help people live happy and fulfilling lives. There's a why behind everything. And so how you focus, shift your focus when I'm not here to remind you, is you connect to a why. A why has to be something that's more powerful than the why of your loss. Right? Remember our Facebook example. That person might find that the reason they keep their pain around is because it becomes a reason to connect. That's a powerful connector. And at a time when you may feel more alone than you ever do, being able to connect, even if it's not the most positive and fulfilling way, connection's connection. And for somebody who feels alone, that can be a very scary place, right? And the lure of having some sort of connection can be very intoxicating. And we'll often sacrifice happiness in the short term because we'll take that instant connection. Because we settle for that connection not believing that we can ever have happiness again. Right? And perhaps you felt that before, or you know somebody who has. When we have a why, a motivating force behind this, a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to get out of bed, right? It changes everything. If you're a parent or you know somebody who's a parent, how dramatically did your life change, or did their life change when you had your kids? Right? Your programming, and especially initially about what you were supposed to do, about your purpose for the day, completely changed. How many of you who never thought you could stay up all night to feed somebody or take care of somebody found yourselves doing exactly that, or know somebody who does do that? Right? I've been blessed to work with quite a few parents, both before they're having kids, after having kids, and in the process of having kids. And one thing I found that's universal with them is how dramatically they all remark their life changed immediately having kids. Their why changed. And the why changed so powerfully that it was enough to get them up at night. It was enough to get them to do things that they never thought they would do before. So you need to have a why to be able to shift your focus. There needs to be something that's motivating enough and inspiring enough to you at that time to get you to do that. Because if you don't, what will happen is you're going to continue to fall almost victim to the danger of despair, and the purpose of your pain will continue to be one that is going to give you a negative payoff in life. It's a short-term quick fix, right? You get the connection or whatever that is, or the more solid ground in your identity. But long-term, as any of you who have been there before or know somebody who's been there before know, that the pain and the payoff of that pain becomes far more painful long-term. Because what you give up to get that is life. Right? What you give up to get that is life. Right? You think about how much, those of you who have been stuck in loss, or know somebody who's been stuck in loss, think about how much you've missed out on. Right? Think about maybe there's times where you're physically present, but you weren't present. Right? How many conversations have you been there and people are talking to you, people you love and care about? How many times have you had your kids going, "Mommy, Daddy, Mommy, Daddy," and you hear them, but you're not really there because you're off somewhere else, and you're just trying to keep on a fake smile to be able to make it through the day? Loss cost. It costs us a lot. A loss will ruin relationships. It will ruin health. It will destroy businesses. And more than anything, it will implode a perfectly beautiful and amazing life. What do I mean by implode? I mean that loss, and those of you who have experienced this know, it is literally a ticking time bomb inside. And if you don't heal from it, it will tear you apart from the inside and destroy so much of what you hold dear. And that's why I say implode, because this isn't an external explosion. It's something that you're creating from within. It's something that you're created from within. Which is another part of why I wanted to spend this time talking with you today. Is one, I hope you got a lot of really good value about what I shared. We talked about the danger of despair. We talked about the purpose in your pain. We talked about the shifting your emotion, the focus, and we also talked about your why, how to change things, how to be able to shift and really be able to connect with your focus even when I'm not here. The other part of me talking with you today is because I wanted to extend a special offer to you. And if you stuck with me this far in this talk, I hope you'll stick with me a little bit more and really seriously consider this opportunity for yourself or for whoever it is that it may be appropriate for in your life. And this is why. As I said before, I've not only endured and experienced loss, but I've also gone through the losing process with many clients. And what I found is that there are some fundamental differences between myself and my first two losses, Gabe and my father, versus how I went through the third loss of my best friend. I was fascinated by, curious by, what was it that made people heal? Why is it that some people could heal faster than others? Why is it that some were able to go on and live more fulfilling and enriching lives? I knew that if one person could do it, that anybody could do it. And more importantly, I knew that if I could do it, especially because I knew how I felt after losing my dad and losing Gabe, that if I could do it, anybody else could do it. So it became a real passion of mine to create a course, create a program that would help people like yourself heal from their loss and heal in a time that was not 1 year, 5 years. I wanted to take people and be able to help them heal and move forward in a positive and proactive way, in a way that would their friends, their family, whoever it is they lost would be inspired by the way they were choosing to live their life. And ultimately what I did was I created this course called Healing from Loss. And of the courses, the programs I've taught so far, it's by far one of my very favorites and one of the ones that is easily the most deeply personal to me, because the experiences I've seen with people who have gone through this program, it's profound and it's life-changing. I've had people who have gone through this program who have been stuck in their grief, have been burdened by their despair for years. So much so that their whole life felt like it was crumbling apart and literally, they couldn't keep it together. I wanted to read this to you from Gail, Gail was somebody who took the course, and I figured her words are a little bit more powerful than mine. Gail said, "When my dad passed away, I felt my whole world had just collapsed. I fell in a black hole so deep I didn't think I could ever get out. My little dog Molly was my saving grace, and she was like my child. I lost her 6 years after my dad had passed, and again I felt my life spinning out of control. When my mom passed away, I felt like I had no purpose in life. And I thought I'm destined to be miserable for years to come. By the second meeting of Healing from Loss, I could feel a change in myself that I didn't think was possible. I was enjoying my life guilt-free, I got my smile back, and today I'm living a fulfilling life to honor my mom. Life is too short to spend years in a black hole trying to fight your way out when Jesse can give you the tools to do it today." There's countless people who have gone through this program that have experienced something similar to Gail, and I want to offer it to you today. Healing from Loss is a 6-week-long course, and how it's going to work is every week I'm going to show up in your inbox with the week's teaching, the week's focus point. And we're going to have about an hour together of really diving in and focusing on some of these things that we highlighted here and going deeper into the healing process. My intention for you is to take you from wherever you are at the start of this course to a place at the end where you are living a happier, more fulfilling life, and most importantly, that you are living a life in a way that's full of purpose and one that honors the person you've lost, honors them in a way that they could, if they could reach out and kiss you for how proud of them, how proud of you they are, they would do exactly that. One that would leave them beaming with pride to see how the amazing things and the quality of life you're living. Because what I'm willing to bet is for each and every one of you here watching this, one thing that's universal is that the person you lost would likely want to see you living a life where you're happy, where you feel loved, and where you feel fulfilled, right? And I think deep down you know that too, which is ultimately why you're still here. And this is why I think that if it's appropriate for you, I would love to see you do the Healing from Loss course. Now, what I'm going to offer it to you is normally I offer the course at the investment of $297 for the 6-week course. For you today, I'm going to reduce it down to $197. So you're going to get $100 off of it. And there's going to be some bonuses that come with it too. You're going to be able to be included in a members-only Healing from Loss course where you can interact with other people who have taken the program. And I'm also going to throw in as a bonus to you a free one-on-one session with me where we'll be able to talk deeper, a coaching session where we can dive in deeper with some of the concepts and things that we're going to cover in Healing from Loss, so that we can really make sure that you're grasping and understanding concepts and ideas, and that you can have that breakthrough going forward. And people have utilized this to really help tie things together. And also what they've utilized it for is somebody finds like Gail once they're healed, and they're not having that burden of pain carrying them around. They're not having to drag that weight of despair around with them. That they have literally this weightlessness, this weight's been lifted off them. And so it's this, well, now what? Now what? And some of the people who will use that session with me, it'll be to talk about, well, what's next in life? What can I create now that I'm not bogged down by that pain? I don't know about you, but maybe there's things that you've wanted to do in your life. There's things that you've had, goals you've had, dreams you've had, but you've put them on the shelf because so much of your life's been focused on loss. I can imagine, having been there before, how freeing that would be for you if you're willing to give yourself this gift of allowing yourself to heal, so that you now have this new space to be able to go on and live a happy and fulfilling life. What I'm going to do for you right now, for those of you who want to take advantage of this offer, is I am going to copy and paste this link, and I'm going to put it here in the comments, and this is where you'll go to sign up. And what I'll do, if you just saw that pop up, and you can click there and you'll see, I think Gail's picture might pop up on your screen. You can click there to go and sign up. And also I'll put it in the description of this too, so you'll be able to. So all you need to do is just click down below. Just click down below and you'll be able to sign up and get in on the course. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here, and I hope to have the opportunity to serve you and help you heal from your loss. Again, if this is something that has burdened you for a long time, or you're fed up with feeling like this, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, or you know someone this may benefit, I encourage you to give yourself the gift of healing from loss. Give yourself this opportunity at a new, better quality of life going forward. I promise you, your purpose of being here is not pain. Your purpose of being here is love, is happiness, is joy, and fulfillment. And I've seen it happen time and time again with thousands of people from all over the world. That when we allow ourselves to heal from whatever pain of the past, the door is open to a lifetime of whatever it is we wish to experience. And I would love to give you that opportunity to experience that. So again, you're just going to click below and you'll be able to sign up for Healing from Loss. And I look forward to working with you there and helping you heal from your loss. Thank you so much.